but because her absence forced me to find my purpose, my peace, and my power. So if you're listening to this and someone walked out on you, remember this rejection is not the end of your story. It's the plot twist that leads you to everything you truly deserve. Because sometimes the person who breaks your heart is actually the one who opens it to a love, a life, and a destiny far greater than you ever imagined. A heartbreak often comes when we least expect it. It arrives uninvited in moments when everything seems stable, when life feels calm, and when love feels certain. We never plan for it, and that's what makes it so devastating. One day you're sharing dreams and laughter with someone, believing you both see the same future, and then suddenly you're standing alone, trying to make sense of what just shattered. The shock of it all can leave you breathless, questioning not only the relationship but yourself. You start to wonder if you missed the signs, if there was something you could have done differently, if maybe you weren't enough. The truth is, heartbreak never waits for the right time. It doesn't knock before it enters your life. It storms in, without warning, rearranging everything you thought you knew about love and security. When someone leaves you unexpectedly, it's not just their absence you feel, it's the collapse of every expectation you built around them. You lose not only a person, but also the future you imagined together. The places that once felt warm now feel cold, the songs that made you smile now ache, and even the silence becomes heavier because it reminds you of what used to fill it. But what makes heartbreak even more painful is the contrast between what was and what is. You remember how it felt when everything was good. The laughter, the support, the shared plans. Those memories haunt you because they stand in direct opposition to the emptiness you feel now. It's hard to believe that something so alive could die so suddenly. The mind clings to those good moments, desperately searching for answers, trying to turn back time to when everything made sense. Yet, no matter how much you replay the past, it never changes the reality of the present. Unexpected heartbreak also teaches us something uncomfortable, how little control we actually have over others. You can give someone love, loyalty, time, and effort, and still they might choose to walk away. That realization shakes you to your core because it exposes the fragility of human connection. We like to believe that love guarantees permanence, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes people leave, not because you failed, but because their chapter in your story was simply meant to end. Accepting that takes strength, and at first, it feels impossible. In those moments, the pain can feel unbearable. You wake up each day hoping the heaviness will fade, but it doesn't, at least not right away. You go through your routines like a ghost of yourself, smiling when you have to, pretending you're okay when you're not. Nights become the hardest because that's when memories echo the loudest. You miss the conversations, the comfort, the feeling of being loved. But even in that ache, something quiet begins to shift within you. A small part of you starts learning how to live without them. The unexpected nature of heartbreak forces you to rebuild from the ground up. It strips you down to the rawest version of yourself and demands that you face everything you've been avoiding, your fears, your insecurities, your dependency on others for happiness. It's painful, but it's also transformative because when love leaves you without warning, it gives you a rare opportunity to see who you are without the safety net of someone else. You begin to discover that your strength doesn't come from being loved. It comes from surviving the loss of love. Over time, the sting of that unexpected ending becomes less sharp. You start to realize that even though heartbreak came uninvited, it also came with lessons you couldn't have learned any other way. It taught you resilience, patience, and most importantly, self-respect. It showed you that not every ending is meant to destroy you. Some are meant to awaken you. You may not see it in the beginning, but one day you look back and realize that the heartbreak that once shattered you also shaped you into someone stronger, wiser, and far more capable of real love, both for others and for yourself. Pain can be a catalyst for personal growth. When we go through heartbreak, loss, or disappointment, the pain feels unbearable, but beneath that suffering lies the potential for transformation. Pain strips away illusions, forcing us to confront parts of ourselves we often ignore when life feels comfortable. It breaks the walls we build to protect ourselves and exposes our deepest fears, insecurities, and emotional wounds. It's through that discomfort that we begin to understand who we really are. Pain has a strange way of becoming the mirror that reflects our strength back to us, even when we feel completely broken. In the beginning, pain feels like destruction. It tears apart everything familiar and leaves behind confusion and emptiness. You might find yourself questioning why life is so unfair or why the people you trusted the most hurt you. Those questions rarely have clear answers, and that uncertainty can make you feel lost. but hidden in that chaos is the seed of growth. Pain shakes us awake from our comfort zones. It forces us to see that we've been living in ways that may not serve us anymore, holding on to people who drain us, chasing validation that never satisfies, or ignoring our own needs to please others. Without pain, many of us would never pause long enough to reflect on those patterns. When pain enters your life, it pushes you toward change. Even when you resist it, it teaches you emotional resilience, how to endure, how to sit with discomfort, and how to rebuild when everything feels uncertain. Growth doesn't happen in moments of ease. It happens when you're stretched beyond what you think you can handle. Every time you survive something painful, you expand your emotional capacity. You learn that you can go through heartbreak and still love again, that you can lose everything and still find new meaning. You learn that your worth isn't tied to anyone's presence or absence in your life. Pain also deepens your empathy. When you've been broken, you start to understand other people's pain on a level you never could before. You become softer, more compassionate, because you've seen how fragile the human heart can be. You stop judging others for their struggles and instead begin to connect with them through shared understanding. This empathy becomes a quiet strength. It allows you to love deeper, listen better, and appreciate moments of peace in a way you couldn't when life was easy. There's also something powerful about what pain reveals about your priorities. When everything falls apart, you begin to see what truly matters. The small things that used to consume your attention lose their importance, and you start valuing things like peace, honesty, and self-respect more than anything else. You realize that not every battle is worth fighting, not every person is meant to stay, and not every loss is truly a loss. Pain refines your perspective. It burns away what's superficial and leaves behind what's real. Over time, you begin to notice subtle changes within yourself. You're not as easily shaken by the same things that once broke you. You've learned to trust yourself more, to rely on your inner strength instead of external reassurance. You start to make choices that honor your growth rather than your fears. You find beauty in solitude and power in self-awareness. That's when you realize that the pain didn't just wound you, it rebuilt you. It gave you wisdom, clarity, and the courage to move forward without carrying the weight of the past. In the end, pain doesn't just change you, it evolves you. It takes you from who you were to who you're meant to become. And while it never feels fair or gentle, it always leaves behind something valuable. A deeper understanding of yourself, a stronger heart, and a more grounded sense of purpose. Pain is not the enemy, it's the silent teacher that shows you what you're truly capable of when there's nothing left to hold on to but faith in your own resilience. Life removes people not to punish, but to redirect. Sometimes the people we care about most are taken from our lives in ways we don't understand. It can feel like betrayal, abandonment, or even failure, but in reality, it's life's way of guiding us toward a path that better aligns with our growth and purpose. When someone walks away, it's natural to focus on the loss. But what we often fail to see in the moment is that their absence creates the space needed for something new to emerge, a new mindset, a new opportunity, or a new version of ourselves that couldn't exist while they were still there. When you lose someone you love, it can feel like everything is falling apart. You might spend countless nights replaying memories, searching for the moment things changed, wondering what you did wrong. But the truth is, not every departure is meant to make sense immediately. Some people come into your life only to play a specific role, to teach you a lesson, to push you toward healing, or to help you realize your own worth. When that lesson is complete, the connection may naturally fade, no matter how deeply you wish it would stay. We often see these moments as punishment, as if the universe is being cruel. But sometimes, the people who leave are the very ones keeping us from moving forward. We become attached to their presence, their validation, their comfort, and we stop listening to the quiet voice inside that's urging us to grow. Life knows what we can't see. It knows when certain people no longer align with where we're going, even if we're still emotionally tied to where we've been. So it steps in and removes them, not to hurt us, but to redirect us towards something greater. At first, this redirection doesn't feel like a gift. It feels like loss, confusion, and pain. But if you've ever looked back after healing from heartbreak or disappointment, you've probably realized that what you once begged to keep would have kept you small. The very relationship, friendship, or situation that felt like home was actually holding you back from becoming who you were meant to be. Life has a way of clearing out what no longer serves your growth, even when you fight to hold on to it. That's not cruelty, that's divine redirection. Sometimes the removal is subtle. People drift apart, conversations grow shorter, priorities change. And sometimes it's abrupt, a breakup, a betrayal, a goodbye you never saw coming. But whether gentle or harsh, the outcome is the same. You're being moved, you're being repositioned. The universe is saying, this chapter has served its purpose. It's time to turn the page. When you begin to see it that way, you stop resisting and start trusting. You stop chasing what left and start walking toward what's next. Redirection doesn't mean forgetting the people who've left. It means understanding that their role in your life was temporary but meaningful. They may have broken you open, but that opening allowed light to enter. They may have disappointed you, but that disappointment taught you to set boundaries. They may have left you, but their absence taught you how to stand on your own. That's what redirection really is, a transformation disguised as loss. Over time, the pain fades and the bigger picture starts to reveal itself. You find new connections that support your growth, opportunities that challenge you, and moments of peace that remind you why things had to unfold the way they did. You begin to see that every ending was actually a beginning in disguise. The people who left didn't derail your journey, they redirected it. And in that redirection, life gave you the chance to become more aligned, more grounded, and more powerful than you ever were before. Strength is born from moments of abandonment. It's easy to believe you're strong when everything in life feels stable, when love surrounds you, and when support is always within reach. But real strength is revealed when the people you depend on suddenly disappear, when life leaves you standing alone in the silence they left behind. Abandonment forces you into a confrontation with yourself. It strips away every layer of comfort and protection until all that's left is you, raw, exposed, and vulnerable. And in that vulnerable space, something powerful begins to awaken the realization that you are capable of surviving what once felt impossible. When someone walks away, especially when you needed them the most, the pain cuts deep. It feels like the ground beneath you has vanished. You question your worth, your judgment, and even your ability to be loved. The mind goes in circles trying to understand why someone could leave after promising to stay. That confusion becomes a heavy weight, but buried beneath it lies the seed of strength. Because once you've been left with nothing but yourself, you have no choice but to rebuild, not from what you lost, but from what you've always carried within. Abandonment teaches you resilience in a way comfort never could. It teaches you that even when people fail you, you can still rise. It shows you that your power doesn't depend on who stands beside you, but on how you stand when no one else does. Those lonely nights, those tearful mornings, those moments when you have to pick yourself up off the floor, they forge you. Every time you get back up, you're proving that love leaving you doesn't mean life has left you. You start learning that your heart can break and still keep beating, that your world can collapse and still be rebuilt. There's something sacred about the silence that follows abandonment. At first, it feels unbearable, like a void that nothing can fill. But as time passes, that silence becomes a teacher. You begin to hear your own thoughts clearly. You realize how much of yourself you had been giving away to keep others close. You notice the patterns, how you've tolerated too much, settled too easily, or relied too heavily on others for your sense of belonging. Abandonment forces you to meet the parts of yourself you've ignored, and through that meeting, strength starts to grow. When you've been left behind, your heart learns endurance. You stop expecting others to carry you and start learning how to carry yourself. The strength that emerges isn't loud or showy. It's quiet, steady, and deeply rooted. It's the kind of strength that whispers, I've been through worse and I survived. That kind of resilience doesn't fade. It stays with you, reshaping how you approach love, trust, and even your own dreams. You become more careful with who you let in, not because you're bitter, but because you've learned the value of your own energy. And maybe, most importantly, abandonment reveals the truth about love. That real love begins with the one person who can never leave you yourself. Once you've been abandoned and found your way through it, you no longer chase love out of fear of being alone. You learn to choose love from a place of strength, not desperation. You understand that you can lose people and still be whole. That understanding is freedom. So while abandonment may break your heart, it also builds your backbone. It transforms dependence into independence, fragility into courage, and loneliness into self-respect. You walk through the fire of being left and come out carrying your own light. That's where true strength is born, not from having people stay, but from realizing that even if they go, you'll still be standing. Healing begins when we stop seeking closure from others. For the longest time after someone leaves, we believe that peace depends on getting answers. An explanation, an apology, a reason that makes sense of the pain. We replay conversations in our heads, analyzing every detail, trying to fill in the gaps they left behind. We tell ourselves that if only we could understand why they did what they did, then maybe we could move on. But real healing doesn't come from their words. It begins the moment we stop waiting for them to give us peace and start creating it within ourselves. Closure is often an illusion. We imagine it as this magical moment when everything suddenly makes sense and the pain disappears, but life rarely gives us that kind of clarity. The truth is, people leave without explaining, relationships end without warning, and not every story concludes neatly. Sometimes the person who hurt you won't admit what they did. Sometimes they won't care. And sometimes they simply don't know how to give you what you're asking for. Waiting for closure from them keeps you tied to the very pain you're trying to escape. It's like standing in the ashes of what burned you, hoping the fire will come back just to tell you why it hurt. The need for closure comes from the part of us that still believes we could have changed the outcome. We think, if I had done this differently, maybe they wouldn't have left. But that kind of thinking only deepens the wound. It keeps you trapped in a loop of self-blame, hoping that one day their words will release you from it. Yet true release doesn't come from understanding their reasons. It comes from accepting that you may never know them. Healing begins when you stop needing to understand why and start focusing on how. How to move forward, how to rebuild, how to love yourself again. When you stop seeking closure from others, you reclaim your power. You stop giving them control over your emotions and start taking responsibility for your own peace. You begin to understand that their silence is also an answer, maybe not the one you wanted, but one that tells you everything you need to know. It says, this chapter is over, and while it hurts, accepting that truth allows you to start writing the next one. Every time you choose acceptance over obsession, you heal a little more. Letting go of the need for closure doesn't mean pretending you're fine or denying that you were hurt. It means facing the pain head on and deciding that you won't let it define you. It's sitting with the questions and making peace with not having all the answers. It's realizing that closure isn't something given to you. It's something you create through understanding yourself. You learn to see the situation for what it was, not for what you hoped it could be. You start to understand that some people leave not because of who you are, because of where they are in their own journey. With time, the urge to reach out fades. You no longer feel the need to ask them why. You stop checking their social media, stop waiting for their message, stop hoping for that one last conversation that would make it all make sense. Instead, you start focusing on yourself, your healing, your peace, your growth. You realize that the only closure you ever needed was your own decision to move on, and somewhere in that quiet acceptance, you begin to heal. The pain doesn't vanish overnight, but it starts losing its grip on you. You find yourself breathing easier, laughing again, feeling whole without needing anyone's validation. That's when you understand that the real closure wasn't about them at all. It was about you choosing to stop chasing answers and finally choosing yourself instead. Loss teaches us what truly matters. When we lose something or someone we thought we couldn't live without, our world suddenly feels unfamiliar. Everything slows down. The noise of everyday life quiets, and what's left behind are the things that really hold weight: love, peace, presence, and meaning. Loss has a way of stripping away the superficial layers we once thought were so important. It reveals the truth about what we value, what we've taken for granted, and what actually gives life its depth. It's only when something is gone that we start to see how deeply it shaped us. At first, loss feels unbearable. It doesn't matter if it's the loss of a person, a relationship, a dream, or even a version of yourself. It leaves a hollow space that no one and nothing seems to fill. You find yourself searching for distractions, trying to keep busy, convincing yourself that you're fine. But in quiet moments, the reality of what's missing returns. It's in those moments that loss begins its most painful work. The work of reflection. It forces you to confront what you held onto, why it mattered so much, and what remains now that it's gone. Through that pain, a strange kind of clarity emerges. You begin to see that so much of what you worried about before doesn't matter anymore. The small arguments, the pride, the things you thought you couldn't forgive, they lose their importance in the face of real absence. Loss reminds you that time is fragile and love is rare, and that holding grudges only wastes both. It teaches you that presence is far more valuable than perfection, that being there for someone means more than being right, and that saying, "I love you," while you still can, is one of life's greatest privileges. Loss also reshapes your understanding of strength. You start to realize that strength isn't about pretending you're okay. It's about allowing yourself to feel, to cry, to grieve, and still find the courage to move forward. You learn that healing doesn't mean forgetting, it means carrying the memory differently. It's the moment when you stop wishing things could go back to how they were and start learning how to live with how they are. That's when loss begins to transform into wisdom. It softens you in some places and strengthens you in others. When you lose something meaningful, your perspective on life shifts. You begin to notice the beauty in ordinary moments. A conversation, a quiet morning, a sunset, a smile. You start cherishing the people who show up, who stay, who listen. You stop chasing things that don't bring real fulfillment. The things that once seemed urgent, success, approval, material comfort, start to lose their hold on you. You begin to prioritize peace over chaos, connection over attention, authenticity over appearances. Loss, as painful as it is, brings you back to what's real. It also teaches you gratitude in ways comfort never could. Once you've experienced loss, you start to see every new day as a gift. You appreciate what you still have because you know how easily it can be taken away. You hold your loved ones closer, not out of fear, but out of appreciation. You realize that life isn't about having everything, it's about valuing the moments and people that truly make it meaningful. Over time, the pain of loss becomes less about what's missing and more about what it taught you. You carry the memory of what you lost not as a wound, but as a reminder of how love can shape you, how life can change in an instant, and how even in the depths of pain, there's still something beautiful to be found. Loss doesn't just take from you, it gives you new eyes to see the world, new priorities, and a deeper understanding of what truly matters. The right person will stay through life's storms. It's easy to find people who will walk beside you when the sun is shining, when everything feels light and effortless. But the true measure of love isn't seen in calm seasons, it's revealed in chaos. When life becomes uncertain, when you're struggling, when the version of you that shows up isn't perfect or cheerful or easy to love, that's when you see who's real. The right person won't run from your pain. They'll reach for your hand and remind you that you don't have to face it alone. In a world where relationships can feel disposable, where people disappear at the first sign of difficulty, finding someone who stays is rare. The right person won't vanish when you're no longer at your best. They'll see beyond the surface, beyond your flaws, mistakes, and insecurities, and recognize the heart beneath it all. They'll understand that love isn't about convenience, it's about commitment. It's about choosing to stay when walking away would be easier. It's about standing beside someone not just because life feels good, but because they matter, even when life feels hard. When you go through a storm, everything around you gets tested. Your patience, your faith, your resilience, and especially your relationships. Some people will leave because they were only there for the good parts of the story. They were meant to teach you something about love, but not to be your forever. Others, though, will stay, not because they have to, but because they want to. The right person understands that storms are temporary. They know that even the strongest connections are built not on perfection, but on endurance. They see the bigger picture that love grows stronger when it's tested, that the roots deepen when they weather wind and rain together. The right person will never use your low moments against you. They won't judge you for breaking down, for not having it all together, or for being scared. Instead, they'll offer patience when you're overwhelmed, kindness when you're distant, and reassurance when you doubt yourself. They'll remind you of your worth, not because you've proven it, but because they see it even when you don't. That kind of love doesn't try to fix you, it simply stands beside you while you heal. Staying through the storm doesn't mean everything is always easy or peaceful. There will still be misunderstandings, hurt feelings, and hard days. But the difference with the right person is that they don't give up. They communicate. They fight for the connection instead of against it. They understand that love isn't about avoiding pain, it's about facing it together. The storms don't scare them because they trust the bond you've built and they believe that both of you can make it through. Over time, you begin to realize how rare that kind of loyalty is. You learn to appreciate the quiet strength of someone who stays. Their consistency becomes a source of peace. Their presence a reminder that love can be steady even when life isn't. They teach you that real love isn't about grand gestures or constant excitement. It's about the small, everyday choices to care, to show up, to stay connected. The right person doesn't just survive the storm with you, they help you grow through it. They remind you that every challenge you face together becomes part of your foundation. Every hardship overcome adds another layer of trust. You start to see that love isn't fragile, it's resilient, it bends, but it doesn't break. And when the storm finally passes, you look at each other differently, with deeper understanding, stronger respect, and a love that has proven itself real. That's the kind of love that doesn't fade with time or distance. It's the kind that lasts because it was forged in the storm and came out stronger on the other side. Rejection is a redirection towards something better. When someone rejects you, whether it's in love, friendship, or opportunity, the first reaction is almost always pain. It feels personal, like a reflection of your worth. You start questioning yourself, wondering what you lacked or what you could have done differently. The sting of rejection cuts deep because it touches the part of us that longs to be accepted, to be seen, to be chosen. But over time, if you look closely, you start to realize that rejection isn't punishment. It's life's way of closing one door so you can find the one that's truly meant for you. In the moment, rejection feels final. It feels like failure, like an ending you didn't choose. But what if it's not an ending at all? What if it's a divine interruption? A necessary pause to stop you from settling for less than you deserve. Sometimes the things we lose are exactly the things that would have limited us. The relationship that fell apart might have kept you small. The job you didn't get might have prevented you from discovering your real purpose. And the person who walked away might have been standing in the way of the person who's truly meant to stay. Life sees the paths we can't yet see, and rejection becomes its way of steering us toward the right one. The hardest part is learning to trust that redirection when you can't yet see where it's leading. In the middle of it, all you feel is the loss. You replay what happened, trying to understand why it didn't work out. You may even try to force things back to how they were, thinking if you just try harder, you can fix it. But what's meant for you doesn't require convincing. It aligns naturally. The pain of rejection exists not because you weren't enough, but because you were trying to fit into a space that wasn't meant for you anymore. Once you begin to accept that, rejection starts to lose its power over you. Rejection also builds resilience. Every time life says no, you get stronger. You start realizing that you can survive disappointment, that you can stand again after being knocked down. It shapes your character, sharpens your intuition, and teaches you to recognize when something isn't aligned with your growth. It's easy to think of rejection as a setback, but it's often preparation. It's training you to handle what's ahead, to develop patience, strength, and wisdom. Those qualities are forged in the moments when things don't go your way. Rejection is also clarity in disguise. It removes the illusion that something or someone was right for you when, in truth, it wasn't. Sometimes we want something so badly that we ignore the signs it's not working. We overlook red flags, silence our intuition, and hold on out of fear. Then, when rejection happens, it feels like devastation. But later you see that it was protection. It was life's way of freeing you from something that wasn't meant to last. What feels like loss in the moment often turns into relief once you gain distance and perspective. And when you look back after healing, you realize that every rejection led you somewhere important. It guided you to the opportunities, people, and experiences that matched your growth. The very thing that once made you cry might become the reason you're now thriving. Rejection teaches you to stop chasing what's not aligned and start trusting the flow of your journey. You begin to see that every no was really a not this, not now, not here, because something better was waiting down the road. When you finally experience that something better, everything clicks. You understand why it had to happen the way it did. You feel grateful, not resentful. The rejection that once broke your heart becomes one of the most meaningful turning points in your life. It shows you that nothing that's truly meant for you will ever pass you by, and everything that does was simply guiding you towards something greater. Gratitude transforms pain into wisdom. When life breaks your heart or takes something away, your first instinct is to resist it, to focus on what went wrong and what you lost. It's natural to feel anger, confusion, and sadness, but staying in that space for too long keeps you trapped in the past. Gratitude doesn't erase the pain, but it changes how you carry it. It shifts your perspective from, why did this happen to me? To, what can I learn from this? That small change in mindset becomes the beginning of healing. It doesn't mean pretending the pain doesn't hurt. It means allowing the pain to teach you. At first, gratitude feels impossible in the middle of heartbreak or loss. How can you be thankful for something that caused you so much suffering? But gratitude isn't about being thankful for the pain itself. It's about being thankful for what the pain revealed. Every difficult experience exposes something, a truth about yourself, about others, or about life. It shows you your strength, your resilience, and your capacity to grow. When you start to look at pain through the lens of gratitude, it becomes a lesson rather than a punishment. You begin to see that every heartbreak carried a hidden message. Every disappointment redirected you towards something better, and every loss shaped you into a deeper, wiser version of yourself. Gratitude softens the bitterness that pain leaves behind. It replaces resentment with understanding. When someone hurts you, it's easy to focus on the betrayal and the unfairness, but gratitude helps you see the bigger picture. You start to realize that their departure made space for your growth, that their rejection freed you from something that wasn't meant to last, that their silence taught you to listen to your own voice. Gratitude turns what could have broken you into something that built you. It helps you forgive, not because they deserve forgiveness, but because you deserve peace. The power of gratitude lies in its ability to turn chaos into clarity. When you focus on what you still have rather than what you lost, your energy begins to shift. You start noticing small blessings, a kind friend, a quiet morning, the strength to get out of bed, the ability to breathe through another day. These small recognitions become the stepping stones back to yourself. Gratitude doesn't deny the darkness. It simply reminds you that light still exists, even if it's faint. It teaches you to find meaning in the moments you once overlooked. Over time, the more you practice gratitude, the more you realize how much you've gained from what you thought destroyed you. You see that the pain deepened your empathy, made you more compassionate, and gave you a greater appreciation for love and peace. Gratitude helps you reconnect with life, not as something that always gives you what you want, but as something that always gives you what you need to evolve. The heartbreaks, failures, and endings that once felt cruel begin to make sense in hindsight. You see how they guided you to people who truly care, to passions that fulfill you, and to a stronger sense of self. Gratitude doesn't make the pain disappear, but it transforms it into something meaningful. It takes what once felt unbearable and turns it into wisdom, the kind of wisdom that helps you navigate life with more patience, understanding, and grace. It teaches you to be thankful not only for what you receive, but also for what you survive. Because every time you choose gratitude over bitterness, you reclaim a piece of your power. You stop being defined by what happened to you and start being shaped by what you learned from it. And that's when you realize that gratitude doesn't just heal you. It changes you, turning every scar into a story of growth and every wound into a source of wisdom. We must learn to love ourselves before expecting others to. For most people, love begins externally. We search for it in relationships, approval, and validation from others. We look for someone to make us feel worthy, seen, and complete. But the truth is, no one can fill the emptiness that comes from not loving yourself. You can have someone who adores you completely, yet still feel insecure or unfulfilled if you don't value yourself first. Self-love is the foundation of every healthy connection. Without it, even the most beautiful relationship can crumble under the weight of unmet expectations. Learning to love yourself isn't about arrogance or self-obsession. It's about acceptance, embracing every part of who you are, even the imperfect and wounded pieces. It's understanding that your worth isn't defined by someone's opinion, your past mistakes, or your current struggles. It's the quiet decision to treat yourself with the same kindness, patience, and forgiveness you freely give to others. When you love yourself, you stop needing constant reassurance because you already know your value doesn't depend on who stays or who leaves. When you don't love yourself, relationships often become a place of seeking rather than sharing. You look to others to validate your existence, to fill the gaps you've neglected within. You start to rely on their attention to feel whole, their affection to feel important, and their presence to feel secure. But that kind of dependence turns love into a transaction rather than a connection. It puts impossible pressure on the other person to heal wounds they didn't cause. And when they can't meet those unspoken expectations, you feel disappointed, unworthy, or abandoned. Even if they never intended to hurt you, self-love changes that dynamic completely. It teaches you how to stand solid in your own worth, how to be fulfilled even when you're alone, and how to love others from a place of strength rather than need. When you love yourself, you no longer tolerate disrespect or inconsistency because you know what you deserve. You stop chasing people who treat you like an option. You stop begging for love in places where it's not freely given. Instead, you begin attracting relationships that reflect the way you treat yourself, grounded, balanced, and mutual. Loving yourself also means understanding that you're a work in progress. You don't have to have it all figured out to be worthy of love. You can be healing and still be deserving. You can have flaws and still be valuable. Too often, we delay self-love until we become the best version of ourselves, not realizing that love is what helps us become that version. When you start being gentle with yourself, forgiving your mistakes, acknowledging your growth, and celebrating your resilience, you begin to feel whole from within. That inner wholeness radiates outward and draws in the kind of love that aligns with your authenticity. The beauty of self-love is that it creates emotional freedom. You no longer fear losing people because your happiness doesn't depend on them. You no longer settle for less because you know your own worth. You no longer seek validation because you've already validated yourself. From that space of inner peace, love becomes something you choose to share, not something you're desperate to receive. When you learn to love yourself first, you set the standard for how others will love you. You teach the world how to treat you by how you treat yourself. The relationships that follow are no longer built on dependency or fear. They're built on mutual respect, honesty, and genuine care. You stop trying to be chosen and start choosing yourself every day, and that shift changes everything, because once you truly love who you are, you'll never again accept love that asks you to be anything less. Healing doesn't happen all at once, it comes in waves. One moment, you think you've moved on, and the next, a memory or a song brings back everything you thought you had buried. Healing isn't a straight path, it's messy, unpredictable, and often painful. There are days when you feel strong and full of hope, and others when the emptiness returns like an old shadow. But every wave of emotion, no matter how heavy, is a step toward healing. It's not about erasing the pain, but learning how to carry it with grace until it no longer controls you. When you're healing, patience becomes your greatest teacher. You can't rush the process or force yourself to. Get over it. Healing takes time because it involves unlearning old patterns, letting go of attachments, and forgiving not just others, but yourself. Sometimes you'll feel like you're going backward, revisiting old wounds or emotions you thought you had resolved. But that's part of the process. Healing moves in circles, not straight lines. Each time you revisit the pain, you see it from a higher perspective, and it loses a little more of its power over you. Many people mistake numbness for healing. They think that if they just distract themselves enough with work, people, or habits, the pain will disappear. But unprocessed pain doesn't vanish, it waits. It waits until you're ready to face it, to feel it, to release it. True healing happens when you allow yourself to feel the discomfort without judgment. When you cry without shame, when you speak the truth you've been hiding, when you sit with your feelings instead of running from them, that's when the real transformation begins. Healing demands honesty, and honesty often brings tears before peace. The waves of healing can also bring moments of deep clarity. You start to understand why certain things had to happen the way they did. The heartbreak that once felt senseless begins to reveal its purpose. You see how the pain forced you to grow, to confront parts of yourself you had ignored. You realize that the version of you who was hurt no longer exists. You've evolved. Each wave of healing washes away the parts of you that no longer serve your growth, leaving behind strength, wisdom, and self-awareness. There's also beauty in the spaces between the waves, the calm moments where you feel light again. Those moments remind you that peace is possible even after chaos. At first, they may be brief, but with time, they last longer. You begin to rebuild your life slowly, not as it was before, but as something entirely new. You discover passions, friendships, and dreams that align with who you are becoming. Healing doesn't just restore you, it recreates you. You learn to trust life again, to open your heart again, even though it's been broken before. Some days, you'll still feel the ache. Healing doesn't mean forgetting, it means accepting. The pain becomes part of your story, but it no longer defines you. You can look back without drowning in what happened. You can remember without bitterness. You start to see that every wave that once knocked you down was actually teaching you how to stand stronger. Healing is slow, but it's sacred. It teaches you resilience, compassion, and patience. It shows you how to hold yourself through the storms instead of waiting for someone else to save you. Every wave that comes and goes reshapes you, polishing away the rough edges until what's left is softer, wiser, and more at peace. You may not notice it every day, but with each passing wave, you're healing, becoming whole in ways you never thought possible. Forgiveness is the bridge that leads you from pain to peace. Holding on to anger and resentment might feel like protection at first, like a way to keep yourself safe from being hurt again. But the truth is, holding on only keeps you chained to the very thing that broke you. You replay the betrayal, the disappointment, the words that cut deep, thinking it will somehow bring closure. Yet all it does is keep your heart heavy and your mind restless. Forgiveness isn't about excusing what happened or pretending it didn't hurt. It's about freeing yourself from the emotional prison that pain builds around you. When you choose to forgive, you take your power back. Anger consumes energy. It eats away at your peace, your focus, your joy. You think you're punishing the one who hurt you by holding on to the grudge, but in reality, you're the one carrying the weight. Forgiveness releases that weight. It allows you to breathe again, to think clearly, and to move forward without being defined by your wounds. It's one of the most courageous acts a person can do, not because it's easy, but because it demands strength, humility, and self-awareness. Forgiveness doesn't always come in one moment of clarity. Sometimes it's a process, a slow, intentional decision you make again and again, especially on the days when the pain resurfaces. You might forgive someone in your heart, only to find that the anger comes back weeks later. That doesn't mean you've failed. It means you're human. Healing and forgiveness work hand in hand. As one deepens, the other grows stronger. Each time you choose forgiveness, even if it's hard, you loosen the grip that the past has on you. There's a misconception that forgiveness is about the other person, that it's something you give to make them feel better. But true forgiveness is about you. It's about choosing peace over bitterness. It's saying, I refuse to let this pain control the rest of my life. You can forgive someone and still choose not to let them back into your world. You can let go of the hurt without reopening the door. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation, it means liberation. It means accepting what happened, learning from it, and then releasing the emotional hold it has on you. Sometimes, the hardest person to forgive is yourself. You replay your mistakes, the things you wish you had done differently, the words you wish you hadn't said. You punish yourself for trusting the wrong people or ignoring red flags. But self-forgiveness is essential for growth. You can't move forward if you keep defining yourself by who you were in your worst moments. You are not your mistakes. You are the person who is learning from them. Forgiving yourself doesn't mean forgetting what you did. It means choosing to believe that you can become better because of it. Forgiveness transforms the story. When you forgive, the same memory that once triggered pain starts to bring understanding, you start to see the bigger picture, how the situation shaped you, what it taught you, and how it made you stronger. Forgiveness changes how you carry the past. Instead of it being a wound that bleeds, it becomes a scarf, one that reminds you of your resilience rather than your suffering. Choosing forgiveness doesn't make you weak. It means you're strong enough to let go. It means you value your peace more than your pride. It means you refuse to let someone else's actions dictate your happiness. And when you finally reach that point, when you truly forgive, you'll feel something powerful shift inside you. The anger fades, the pain quiets, and in its place comes an overwhelming sense of calm. You realize that forgiveness was never about them. It was about finding your freedom again, about reclaiming your heart and making space for new beginnings. Sometimes the universe removes people from our lives because we wouldn't have had the strength to let them go ourselves. When you're deeply attached to someone, when you love them so much that you can't imagine your world without them, you often overlook the signs that the relationship is no longer serving your growth. You hold on tighter, believing that if you just try harder, they'll change, things will get better, and the connection will return to what it once was. But sometimes, no amount of effort can keep someone who was never meant to stay. And when you can't walk away, life finds a way to do it for you. The removal can feel like betrayal, like life is being cruel or unfair. You question everything, why it had to end, why it couldn't work, why you're the one left hurting. But with time, you start to see that what felt like a loss was actually a rescue. The universe doesn't take things away to punish you, it takes them away to protect you, to clear the space for something or someone that aligns better with who you're becoming. Sometimes the person you love isn't bad. They're just not meant to go where you're headed. And the longer you try to hold on to something that's no longer right, the heavier it becomes to carry. When someone is removed from your life, it's often because their presence has completed its purpose. Maybe they came to teach you love, patience, boundaries, or self-worth. Maybe they showed you what you don't want so you could better recognize what you do. People are often placed in our lives for reasons we can't see in the moment. And when their chapter is over, Forcing them to stay only delays your own growth. The universe intervenes when your soul is ready for something greater, even if your heart hasn't caught up yet. It's hard to accept this truth when you're in the middle of the loss. The emptiness feels unbearable, the silence deafening. You replay the memories, wondering what you could have done differently. But some endings have nothing to do with mistakes. They're simply redirections. They happen to free you from situations that no longer nurture you. The pain is real, but it's temporary. What's waiting for you on the other side of that pain is clarity, freedom, and peace. But only if you allow yourself to let go. Often, when you finally heal and look back, you realize just how necessary that ending was. You see how that person's absence gave you back your independence, your confidence, and your sense of purpose. You begin to notice all the ways life started improving once the attachment was released. Maybe your energy returned, new opportunities appeared, or you found relationships that made you feel safe and appreciated. None of that could have happened if the wrong person still occupied your space. What once felt like devastation turns out to be divine timing. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you stop clinging. It means you trust that if something or someone is truly meant for you, they'll return in the right time and form, and if not, something better will. The universe doesn't make mistakes, it removes what blocks your evolution. When people leave, it's not rejection, it's redirection. The ones who are meant to walk with you will never need to be forced to stay. So, when someone exits your life suddenly, instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" try asking, "What is this making space for?" That simple shift changes everything. It transforms your pain into perspective and your loss into liberation. Sometimes the greatest blessing isn't what life gives you, it's what it takes away, because in that removal, you find your strength, your peace, and ultimately yourself. The moment you stop chasing what's not meant for you, life starts giving you what truly is. So often we cling to people, opportunities, or dreams simply because we've invested so much into them. We keep chasing the unavailable person, the unstable relationship, or the job that drains us because we're afraid to let go. We convince ourselves that if we just hold on a little longer, try a little harder, things will finally fall into place. But that endless chase only keeps us stuck in a loop of disappointment and exhaustion. The truth is, what's truly meant for you doesn't require you to beg, force, or struggle. It flows naturally because it aligns with who you are and where you're going. When you chase what's not meant for you, you block the energy and opportunities that are. You fill your mind and heart with something that isn't growing, leaving no room for what could. You keep revisiting doors that have already closed, hoping they'll open again, but every time you do, you relive the same pain. The chase gives you the illusion of control, as if holding on harder will change the outcome. But deep down, you know it's resistance. You're not meant to chase what drains your soul. You're meant to attract what nourishes it. Letting go isn't about giving up. It's about making space for what's meant to find you. There's a quiet power in surrender. It's not the same as quitting. It's trusting. It's saying, "I've done my part, and now I release the rest." When you stop chasing, you shift from desperation to faith. You start to believe that what's truly meant for you won't pass you by. You realize that the things and people meant for you don't need to be chased. They stay because they fit. They meet you halfway. They choose you to, and they bring peace instead of confusion. The right things align effortlessly without the constant anxiety of wondering if they'll stay. The chase often comes from fear, fear of being alone, of missing out, of failing, or of not being enough. That fear makes you settle for crumbs instead of waiting for the feast that's meant for you. It convinces you that what's in front of you, even if it hurts, is better than the unknown. But real alignment requires courage. The courage to walk away from what no longer serves you and to trust that life has something better waiting. When you finally let go of what's not meant for you, you don't lose. You create space for what's right. And then something beautiful happens. Life starts flowing again. You begin to notice new opportunities, new connections, and a sense of peace that was missing before. You realize how much energy you wasted trying to make something work that wasn't meant to. You stop feeling like you're swimming against the current and start moving with it. The people and opportunities that enter your life after that don't require struggle. They come naturally, almost effortlessly, because they're in harmony with your growth. It takes strength to stop chasing, especially when your heart is involved. But every time you choose peace over chaos, every time you walk away from confusion and choose clarity, you're telling the universe that you're ready for better. You're declaring that you deserve love that doesn't hurt opportunities that don't drain you, and paths that feel right instead of forced. Letting go of what's not meant for you is not the end. It's the beginning of alignment. It's the point where you stop fighting against life and start trusting its rhythm. You realize that what's truly yours won't need chasing. It will recognize you too. And when it does, it won't run. It will stay, grow, and bring you the peace that chasing never could. In the end, destiny always has a way of bringing you exactly where you're meant to be. You can spend months, even years, wondering why certain things didn't work out, why people left, why opportunities slipped away, or why your heart had to break just to feel whole again. But when you look back later, the pieces begin to make sense. Every heartbreak, every delay, every closed door was guiding you toward the path you were meant to walk. Destiny doesn't always show its plan clearly in the moment. It unfolds slowly, revealing its purpose only when you're ready to understand it. Sometimes destiny removes things from your life because they would have limited your growth. You might have wanted something so badly that you couldn't see how small it was compared to what life had in store for you. You thought losing that person or opportunity was the worst thing that could happen, but later you realized it was the very thing that made space for something greater. That's how destiny works. It redirects, reshapes, and refines. What feels like chaos at first often turns out to be the perfect sequence of events that leads you exactly where you need to be. There's a mysterious rhythm to life that you can't always understand while you're in it. The moments that feel like setbacks are often setups. The people who leave make room for those who are meant to stay. The failures that break your spirit prepare you for the success that will define you. Destiny doesn't work on your timeline. It works on divine timing. And divine timing often looks like waiting, uncertainty, and even heartbreak before it finally reveals its purpose. But once you see how everything connects, you realize nothing was ever random. Even your pain has a place in your destiny. It teaches you lessons that ease cannot. It humbles you, strengthens you, and gives you depth. Without pain, you might never have developed empathy, patience, or the ability to truly appreciate joy. The challenges that once made you question everything often become the very reasons you rise higher. Destiny doesn't shield you from difficulty, it shapes you through it. It doesn't hand you comfort, it gives you growth, and through that growth, you become the version of yourself capable of living the life you're meant for. You might try to resist destiny, to force your own path, to chase after what you think is right for you. But no matter how far you wander, destiny always finds a way to pull you back into alignment. It whispers through coincidences, through unexpected encounters, through moments that feel too perfect to be chance. You start to realize that what's truly meant for you doesn't need to be chased. It comes naturally, almost effortlessly, when you're ready. The universe has a way of rearranging circumstances, people, and opportunities so that what's meant for you can find its way, even after detours and delays. And when destiny finally delivers what's meant for you, it often feels peaceful, not forced. It doesn't come with confusion or chaos, it comes with clarity. You understand why the heartbreaks happened, why certain people had to go, and why you had to struggle. It all leads to that quiet moment of realization everything happened exactly as it should. The pain, the loss, the waiting, it all had purpose. Destiny doesn't make mistakes. It may not give you what you want right away, but it always gives you what you need to grow, to heal, and to evolve. Every ending becomes a beginning, every loss becomes a lesson, and every detour becomes part of the map leading you home to yourself. When you finally see how it all connects, gratitude replaces regret. You stop asking, why me? And start saying thank you, because in the end, destiny never failed you. It was just preparing you for something far greater than you imagined. And so, after everything, the heartbreaks, the losses, the lessons, and the healing, one truth remains: life always knows what it's doing. Every person who walked away, every moment that shattered you, and every rejection that tore you apart was quietly shaping you into someone stronger, wiser, and more aligned with your true path. You were never being punished, you were being prepared. What felt like an ending was often the beginning of something far more beautiful than you could have imagined. Sometimes we only understand life when we look backward, when the pain has settled and the lessons begin to shine through. You start to see how every wrong turn led you to the right place, how every heartbreak guided you closer to self-love, and how every disappointment was really divine protection. The people who left didn't break you, they built you. The struggles that tested you didn't destroy you, they revealed who you are meant to become. So, if you're standing in the middle of pain right now, if you're wondering why things fell apart, hold on. Trust that this chapter is not your ending. You are being guided. even if you can't see it yet. The day will come when everything that once hurt will make perfect sense. You'll look back and smile, not because it was easy, but because you finally understand why it had to happen the way it did. Destiny always has other plans, plans that exceed your imagination, that honor your growth, and that bring peace where there was once pain. So keep moving forward with faith, let go of what's behind you, open your heart to what's ahead, and remember, what's meant for you will always find you, no matter how long it takes. Thank you for listening, for feeling every word, and for walking this journey with me. I hope this message reminds you that even in your darkest moments, life is still working in your favor. You are not forgotten. You are not broken. You are becoming. Until next time, take care of your heart, trust the process, and never stop believing in the beauty of your own story. Thank you and goodbye.